Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We lost our front slide. There we go. Sorry. My name is Allison Ritz. I'm the Director of Product Marketing at Visible Thread. Very excited to have everybody here today. We are joined by Steve, Karthik, and Aaron. They're going to do their introductions in just a second, but all of our panelists today are members of the APMP International Board of Directors. So grateful to have them here today and their expertise. They bring a broad swath of knowledge with expertise in state, local, U.S. federal, and international capture processes. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to them to do their introductions, and then we'll get started.
Great. I guess I'm first on the thing, so I'll jump in first. My name is Steve Skeldon. I am the Capture Director at Chickasaw Nation Industries. We're a tribal 8A across a number of customers and product and service lines, technology, health, etc. So if you guys ever need a tribal partner, come see us. Been doing this for about 14 years between capture and proposals, and really enjoy having these conversations with my fellow APMP board members.
Okay, I'll go next. Myself, Karthik from Core 42. I'm based out of Dubai in UAE. I'm also part of the APMP HQ Board of Directors, and pretty excited to be part of this panel along with my board colleagues.
They'll round us out. I'm Erin Green. I work at Amazon Web Services, leading their global velocity capture program. I've been doing this as long as Steve has, and I'm based out of the DC area. I'm really excited to be here with Karthik and Steve to talk a little bit about the future of capture management.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So the goal today is really to talk about, capture management, expand upon the function, and then talk about the future. So where's it going? What are the trends that we're seeing? And what are some things that are important kind of in all aspects? So just for context setting, so would love to hear in your words, what do you feel like is the definition? What is capture management, and how and why is it evolving in the GovCon space?
So capture management sits in a traditional business development lifecycle between business developer, who holds a lot of the customer relationships, identifies opportunities, and proposals, where we actually put the RFP response together and submit it in. So where capture sits, we sit to take that opportunity that's identified by the business developer and their customer and work with them and the customer to shape it in a way that best benefits the customer's needs and requirements, as well as it goes towards a competitive bid, our ability to win that competitive bid. And I think that's kind of it in a nutshell from at least the federal side.
I think from the, go ahead. I think Karthik and I are about to say similar things in that, like, from the US, state and local and international markets, there is a little bit about customer education as well for capture. So we take that opportunity and we really flush it out with not only other partners, but also, and internally, but also with the customer. Maybe they don't know how to procure. Maybe they don't know how to write this together. And capture does a lot of that in most markets.
Yeah, I think oftentimes we say that this deal took a village to win it, right? So apart from the village, there were also a lot of things, right? There are a lot of processes and procedures that we follow, and the entire capture planning, although it is not part of the proposal management, capture really plays a very important role in actually strategic wins and all that. So in fact, the heavy lifting is done by the capture practice itself, and oftentimes the capture manager is the key responsible person, or the practice is the key responsible practice for making sure that our proposal or our offering is the preferred offering even before the RFPs is floated. Yeah, so it's a very critical action, and oftentimes there is a survey also published on VT which says 80% of the RFPs are already having preferred vendors even before the RFP is floated. That's the key importance of the capture planning.
Excellent.
Yeah, and just to circle back, Aaron, your point about education is critical in the federal market as well. There's these customers may be bound by the federal acquisition regulations, but that doesn't mean that they know them. So acting as a SME in that space is really important. And we're lucky in that we only have one set of acquisition regulations as opposed to 50 states and numerous countries and national localities. So I guess I get off a little easier on that one than you guys.
And so when we're talking about, I know we'll talk a little bit later about, the importance of data and some of the technological developments in the space, but as far as your strategy is concerned, so in the front end, when you're talking about shaping opportunities, can you speak a little bit about your strategy around that generally? Is it different for different customers? Do you go in with a different type of playbook? If you could just give some context, that would be excellent.
Yeah, it's definitely different for different customers. I would say each deal has its own strategy, although I would say I'm pulling from the same framework. It's good to have like a pretty versatile framework that you can use over and over again so that you're not trying to reinvent the wheel on some of the tools that you might leverage. But every customer, every potential opportunity will require tailoring. Some customers are at, a different starting point. Some are highly competitive. Some are not competitive and just an idea in someone's head that you have to help shape in the right direction. And so all of those require different tool sets and different types of data strategy to use.
Excellent.
So there are quite a lot of
go ahead.
Yeah, so there are quite a lot of things that need to fall in place. Like especially there is relationship management, which is always also being not quite given importance basically. So we have a deal which was actually running over a year now. So it's a pure example of or practical example of best practices in capture management. We were involved in cooking the RFI from the lead to RFI to even influencing the RFP to favor us and to actually make sure we ended up doing the proper POCs, and also the solution is favoring our organization's strategic path. So this is how the entire roadmap of capture actually is, right? But as strategic response management function that holds a key part of this capture management, we always tend to get excited about the timelines, but capture is something like if I can relate it to the cricket match, it's not a T20 match, it's a test match that needs to be played really long. Yeah. It takes a village again. So it took 1 year for us to close a strategic deal with the GovCon in Dubai. So it depends on case to case basis. Again, there are timelines. Sometimes the contract is renewing or expiring, and the budget is allocated for the particular year. That scenarios might be a little bit rush hush, but it sometimes take a long time. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in. We're going to kind of talk about this, an excellent segue into, emerging trends. What are we seeing now, and what are we thinking is going to happen in the next, few years to further on in the future? So really want to talk about what are the major trends. So what are the major trends kind of reshaping capture? What are the things that you're seeing that are really making a difference right now? And as we're getting there, I have a poll for everybody on the call. And you can go ahead and answer the poll, and then we will give the answers. So as our panelists are speaking, you can go ahead and answer the poll. But sorry about that. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, all 4 of the poll options are critical. I would say, obviously, the hottest button issue right now is AI and automation. And where I see AI and automation coming in is not to replace our teams, but to act as a force multiplier. So how many RFIs can I respond to if I'm writing them top to bottom, even using reused content? Not nearly as many as the amount that I can submit with a baseline generated by AI, a 70-80% solution. And that's just on the RFI front. As these tools continue to mature and you're able to feed them more and more data to ensure that the outcomes are valid and not hallucinations, you can use them for competitive research. You can use them to draw lines where you may not have seen them before between competitors and between customers, as well as if you feed them your feature set, your service catalog or your product catalog. How can these things come together to solve a particular problem? Customer X needs these 5 things solved. I may think that products A, B, and service X is the right answer. but AI may say, you can do this much simpler just using these other three things and cheaper for them. And then you can come in and beat your customer, your competition on price or quality or speed, any of those big three drivers.
Excellent.
Yeah, just to tack onto that, I also think that data and analytics is really a core component of the AI and automation. So, like, while they are separated, just what Steve said, like, those are hand in hand. Without good data and analytics and analyzing what your competitors are doing, analyzing what your customers are doing, you won't know how to automate what you're doing. You won't get the right results that you're looking for, and you won't get faster, better outcomes. I also wanted to say, like, the AI and automation is like the new critical trend, but it's also becoming the most accessible trend. Like, if you are a team of 1, you can do this. If you're a team of 400, you can do this. Like, this is very accessible, not cost prohibitive, which a lot of the other tools might be. Like, collaboration tools sometimes have a steep price tag, data and analytics sometimes have a steep price tag, but like automating some of your workflows might be free depending on what you're using.
Yeah, Power Automate is a great tool that comes with a lot of Microsoft 365 subscriptions, and I taught myself it, and I'm not a technical person, so if I can do it, you can do it. It's just logic based. If then, make sure that you've got it all in line and can call it. There's a lot of great tutorials out there.
And are you finding in your example, Steve, you said that you may think A, B, and X are a good solution, but AI makes a different suggestion. Are you finding those suggestions to be accurate? Are those things that you are incorporating into the conversation and finding that to be valuable input?
So what I will say is that any AI solution today, and I would say in the somewhat foreseeable future, is going to need a human in the loop. I would, because I've seen Terminator, will always want a human in the loop. But realistically, it's a logic model, and it's a vector-based probability model with generative AI. And it's going to be, like Aaron said, just as good as the data that you put in. If you put in bad data, you're going to get bad results. So you always, always, always want to check it, because that data quality, I just spent 2 days last week at a data quality and healthcare industry day, and it was just the shocking amount of awesome systems, bad data, bad outcomes. Like, once that data quality suffers, you can have the best tool in the world, and it will give you awful, awful results. So yes, in answer to your question, always check.
Yeah, no, that's super important. And I love the Terminator reference. So as far as how you're seeing it leveraged, so do you feel like overall it's improving the results? So as a kind of another person in the room, of course, we need to check, we need to verify, but do you feel like it's improving your results and improving your processes thus far?
I think it's speeding up my processes.
Okay.
More than maybe improving them. It can give me more of me, and that's really helpful. Like, if I have to take 4 hours and write a whole RFI, that's 4 hours that I can be doing something else. If I can do it in an hour, then that's a quarter of the time, and I've now got 3 hours that I don't have to spend on that. And that's an hour prompting, and then checking, and then crafting, and then done. Right. And that's a rough example. It might take 4 hours, it might take 8, but it will take less time than if you're doing it from scratch.
Yeah. In my specific role, so velocity capture is kind of that microcosm between like a bid manager and capture, in that like it's deals that we didn't quite do the right full capture on, but are still strategic, and we still have to do a little bit of capture on, and we still have to win, but it's not quite to the proposals phase. And so that's where my program lives. And so I would say that AI has improved that process, because instead of our like time to win is days, like it's not weeks and months, it's days. So getting a good black hat in days was not possible. And now we can get like any black hat now through AI. Scrubbing RFPs, scrubbing past performances, scrubbing all of that now takes hours instead of days or weeks. So for me, in my team, it has improved process. people are more willing to actually like do the full correct proposal capture life cycle if they know that it's not going to take months to do. They can do it in a couple of days.
Erin doesn't know this yet, but she's going to get a calendar invite for a brain dump session on that concept because I am very fascinated by it.
And that's an excellent point from a psychological perspective, that if it doesn't seem like something that is out of reach or overwhelming, you're more likely to engage.
Yes.
Okay, so let's see what the audience said. So they're agreeing overall, kind of as AI and automation and access to analytics being kind of critical trends moving forward. So excellent. So kind of looking at what we're taking from AI and taking from data analytics, and then talking about building successful win strategies. So when we're from a capture perspective, when you're looking at a winning capture strategy, it's a competitive landscape. What are the things that you're focusing on most? What are the things that in every situation are relevant? And what are kind of the key pieces of the puzzle there to creating a winning strategy?
So I want to start with probably an analogy which I thought of about capture planning itself, right? So imagine capture management as a high stakes treasure hunt where the treasure is a lucrative government contract, right? So in the past, hunters relied on maps, compasses, and sheer luck and the hard work to find the treasures. So today, with the advent of technology and generative AI, the hunt has become more sophisticated. So in today's world, AI and generative is like a high-tech and modern-day metal detector scanning vast digital landscapes to pinpoint potential treasure troves. It analyzes market trends, customer needs, and competitor strategies, helping hunters, in our case, the capture managers, to focus on all their efforts on the most promising leads, right? So by leveraging all the, like what our audience have said, right, in the poll, by leveraging the AI capabilities, capture managers can navigate the complex terrain of GovCon procurement with greater precision and efficiency. It's like having a seasoned guide with a crystal ball predicting the best routes and avoiding potential pitfalls. So some of the key things probably is to actually identify that right lead. In our case, back then in 1920 when I joined my company, there was probably not a very great qualification criteria. So how do we really differentiate that great leads? Emphasize on that great leads. Put your energies on that great leads, and use the latest technologies to fast track some of the things that you could have done manually, and automate those things, and manage those time to maintain the relation with the customer itself, and curate the RFP and things like that. This is very key for any capture management practice.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think that's critical. I think where I've got a sticky note on my desk that says survivorship bias, and I think back to the case study of in World War II, they did an analysis on planes that were coming back and where the bullet holes were. And they eventually realized that it didn't matter where the bullet holes were on the planes that came back, because they needed to look where the bullet holes weren't, because those are the ones that didn't come back. And so what I try and do is I look at where the bullet holes aren't. I look at the data that I don't have, and I try really hard to find that, because that's, I think, where it's going to sink the ship. And not to mix metaphors between naval and aviation there, but and that's I think the hardest thing for me and for the federal market is trying to get in to see the customer and having them feel comfortable with having the conversations with you, because there's a lot of misunderstanding about what the federal customers can and cannot say at what point in the process. So that circles back to our first conversation about it, education. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
And then, yeah, just to add to that, it's getting the right team in the room, or getting the right people in the room for your opportunities. I think that's critical for any deal that I'm doing. But AI helps me identify those. Say I have just like meeting minutes, bad notes that I took from my interactions with the customer, my interactions with the sellers that I'm trying to assist with this. And I can pop those into AI and tell me like, who are the right people from these bad meeting notes who's the right customer point of contact, and get the right people in the room to talk about strategy in a way that I've never been able to do before, without a lot of legwork. And to what both Kartik and Steve have said, like a lot of this is data analysis and tabletop research. If you're doing capture in a different way, please let me know. But a lot of my hours are a lot of data, a lot of trying to figure out who's who in the zoo, why their problem is, what they're trying to solve for, not just what we're trying to sell them, and trying to put that into a coherent strategy. And so all that tabletop work takes work. It takes a lot of work to try to find these resources, to Steve, like trying to find the bullet holes that you don't have, and the data that you don't have, and figure out if that's a strategy. So I think back to what everybody's saying, like data collection and putting together the right strategy to be the good hunter, or to be the airplane that comes back.
Excellent. And that's really important to think about, focusing on not how to best sell your solution, how to meet the customer's needs and what they're really looking for, because that's where the kind of win-win happens. Is there something that you all can share as far as a generalized story or anecdote of something that you have experienced recently?
Sure. So I've got one that I like to share. Now, I will say that this particular bid ended up getting no bid at RFP release due to somebody else sneaking something in that we didn't see coming, or the customer making a decision. Anyway, that's not important. But what was important was we had an opportunity that was on a vehicle that had 98 participants, to talk the customer into limiting that down to people who met the size standard for the small business set aside, which cut it down to 30 or so. And then we were able to talk them further into cutting it down to people who were only still currently in the 8A program, which cut it down to about, I think, 12 to 15. So we went from 98 competitors to 15 competitors through solid capture. Unfortunately, we ended up not being in that 15 because they added a third level of requirement that I think probably only 2 people met. So.
Yeah, and I have a kind of a similar story. So in one of my global markets, our market is very inexperienced. They change government contracting officers pretty frequently and program officers pretty frequently, like every 2 years. So if you are on a large multi-vendor contract like Steve was talking about, or trying to get to, like all that past history is wiped away every 2 years. So you do a lot of education and a lot of trying to get the partners to tell the government officials the right thing in the right way. And so having standardized language for that, and having language that makes sense to these new government employees, was critical for us to be able to shape the next iteration of this contract, because the government didn't know what the problems were from the last time. They didn't know what pain points happened when they solicited this last time, because they weren't there. So we had a lot of conversations about what worked, what didn't work, from a non-biased kind of location. Just, hey, this contract vehicle didn't work this way, and this is why we think. Maybe here's how we would write it again. And we gave them a fully AI generated, multi-document kind of RFP language, from here's some best practices across your region, all in one RFP if you wanted to try again. And they took a large majority of that document to reissue the RFP for the next go around, which was great because the contract vehicle worked for so many more vendors that in the right way, not just blocking people out or only making it one vendor, but it also helped us innovate with that customer a lot more. So that's a great story that I like to keep.
I think I do have similar stories like what Erin and Steve said. Like we had a large contract last year with local, one of the largest entities in the UAE. And obviously we were actually bidding for the same contract from COVID for the third time because during COVID, a lot of procurement things changed, and due to lack of budgets or change in the procurement focus, so the RFP was scrapped in spite of us getting shortlisted and being the top ranked in technical again. So basically, what happened in last year was we had a large 4 months process of capture, entire capture after the RFP with multi vendors, a lot of teaming partners. This was the most talked RFP or the project in UAE at that time. So end of the day, after we submitted a highly rated technical proposal, we were not in the shortlist. So The key message that I found was there is lack of relationship from the capture manager. There is lack of insights. We actually downplayed the incumbent cooking the whole renewal. So things like these have weighed heavily on the overall company's efforts that went into for several months on this huge project. So what I would like to actually emphasize is, like, once the RFP is out, a lot of us start working on the projects as if we just realize that it is a lead, but there is someone else already cooking that whole thing, and it's very tough to actually pull off. There are very few stories I could share probably, which we ended up as from the RFP stage to winning completely all over.
Excellent. No, that's super helpful. So we will look at our poll results here. And so the folks on the call are saying kind of lack of data, lack of insights, lack of visibility into past performance are the biggest things that they're seeing. So it sounds like everybody's kind of on the same page as far as that's concerned. So want to kind of parlay that into our next section, add a new poll here on the screen. So we want to talk about making and optimizing your bid, no bid decision. So talked a little bit about, the education that you're providing, the shaping that you're providing around the opportunity, but how can organizations improve their decision-making when it comes down to bid, no bid? So you've done all the work in the front end to try to shape the opportunity most appropriately. When it comes down to making the decision, what can you do to make sure that you are, doing the right things and chasing the right things?
Oh, Steve, this is just for you. This question
This is a
just
fastball
yours.
down the middle. So I've done this presentation 3 times this year. It seems to be well received, and so people keep accepting it, and people keep enjoying it. And I know all my fellow panelists have seen it. I have a structured spreadsheet that I put together probably 1.5 years ago with criteria that is important to my company. So I take into account our corporate risk profile, our corporate strategy, and I put together this kind of color-coded drop-down, fill-in-the-blank spreadsheet grouped into 4 areas around ability to bid and preparedness to bid and customer intimacy and resources. And it gives us not really a 1 out of 100 score, because I've seen those and those are also great. This is more of a quick jump down, punch in 10 data points and see if you should bid it or not. And it's baseline things like, are you on the vehicle? Do you have the clearance? Are you small under the NAICS code? It's critical stuff, and it's stuff that often gets overlooked. I put it together because I kept getting opportunities passed down from my business developers, and I was like, you spent how much time on this? This is a SDVOSB set aside. It's just a better known, like a better known service disabled, better known set aside, and that's not something that we are. So I was like, everybody just needs to take a breath and fill this out and make sure that we're actually able to chase this thing and that it's qualified. So that's been really helpful for our organization. And we've recently, it's been 9 months now, implemented a CRM system that we were able to build that into. And so those questions get asked as we advance opportunities through the life cycle. So it's been really good to see that and get those questions answered early on, so that we fail fast, as one of my good friends likes to say.
So how often did you see that structure framework being abused, Steve? Like that's the biggest challenge we currently face.
Games.
So yeah. Once they know the scoring criteria, they tend to know what need to be the answer to meet that scoring criteria. That's been the challenge we continuously face and continuously evolve in our organization, or been wherever I've been. But one thing I want to add to whatever you said, Steve, excellent. But there was one thing which I learned in one of my MNCs back in India and Malaysia when I was working for. So there was this value mapping, right? So who are the influencers that are actually scoring this? Who are the budget owners? Who are the project owners? Who are the executives that are going to work on this? So this value mapping is something that keeps neglected sometimes at the time of what we call as opportunity qualification as per our work. So that is something very critical. Sometimes we say just get an answer to say yes, but to what level of extent we do have that value mapping is the biggest puzzle that we need to solve, right? Most of the times.
Yeah, and Kartik, to answer your question, I tried to make it so that it was not per se gameable. It was a lot of yes or no questions, is or is not. The less squish that you have in the system, the harder it is to game it. So you either have either have the contract or you don't have the contract. You either have talked to the customer or you haven't talked to the customer. And I had qualifiers in the questions. Like one of the questions was, have we had meaningful contact with the customer? And anytime I would ask one of my BD guys this, he'd be like, well, I emailed him. Well, I didn't email you back, so you haven't had a conversation. So I said, emailing the contracting officer with no response does not count. So that may have been a little pointed, but the point is, like, it was I think harder to game, but any system can be gamed. So I mean, your point is valid. It's a matter of using. You can't just rely on the system. It's got to be the people as well.
Yeah, I do want to just advocate for the teams of one and things like that, that maybe are making their own bid decisions and then bidding the bid. And I still think it's really valuable to at least have a bid decision process, even if you're the only one who cares.
Yeah.
It matters in your data collection for long term. Circle back to our earlier conversations, but it also matters to generally not overloading yourself and your work. There's a lot of good frameworks on the APMP body of knowledge for how to do a good bid no bid framework if you don't have one that Steve didn't build for you or something. But it's also really customizable. Again, I'm all about an adaptable framework, and so you can customize the bid no bid ones that are online to work for you.
Correct.
Excellent. And so you mentioned there teams of one. So I'm sure we have some folks on the call that are representing kind of all groups. We have folks that are part of huge capture organizations and folks that are maybe one or two people that are trying to do all this themselves. We've talked about leveraging data, some of the things that we can do to sort of spread and save time. What would your recommendation be for those folks that, how can I compete with some of these larger organizations in a situation where I may not be working a set aside or something like that? Or if there's something that, I need to respond to quickly, how can I be most effective?
Be intentional is probably the best way that I can say that. If you're the only person in your BD shop or in your capture shop or in your proposal shop, don't chase everything, because then you're taking your finite amount of time, because that's the only inflexible part here, and you're spreading it across time and attention and spreading it across multiple opportunities, and then none of them get the appropriate amount, and then none of them, you may luck out and win, but that doesn't mean that it was because your bid was the best. It's at least it's not the best that it could be if you were to spend more time on it. So identify, it's just you, identify 3 things. Don't work on too much at a time, because you just don't have the capacity as a human. It's not you individually. You're awesome. I'm speaking broadly to everybody on the call here. You are fantastic, but nobody has the capability to do 15 bids at a time. It's just not humanly possible. There's limits to human attention and the ability to maintain that kind of information in your brain. If you have a more vertical team where you can spread that work across, and you can have BD do one thing and capture do one thing and proposal be working on the opportunity, you can spread it across more opportunities. But if you're doing everything soup to nuts, it can't all be you. So that's where having that framework, and what Aaron said about having the framework and being repeatable is critical, because consistency is key. You don't want to say yes to one thing and no to another for the same reason.
100%. Just to add to that really quickly, I also think that finding your tribe helps a lot. If you're burnt out and stressed out at doing 2 bids, it's probably not as effective as if you're blissed out doing 2 bids. So find people, use APMP, small plug, but use APMP and find people that are doing what you're doing. Find other teams of one. I've been teams of one more than one time, and I couldn't have gone through it without my APMP mentor or some people I met at my local chapter meeting who I could say, hey, I need to grab a drink and get ideas on how to brainstorm better or more effectively or anything like that. So find your tribe as well.
Excellent. Yeah, that's very helpful. look at our poll here. And so a lot of the folks on the call are using a framework or opportunity scoring system, but we do still have, a combination of instinct. So I think that a lot of the tips are really great. And also, I'll say this at the end, but all of our panelists today, you can follow on social media, connect with them, and of course, connect with APMP, a lot of, wonderful resources out there. So our last kind of topic, we'll roll into that, and I'll put the new poll up here, but really talking about analytics and data. So leveraging the tools that we have when we talk about the metrics that you're using. So we've talked about process a little bit, we've talked about incorporating that data, but what are the key points you should focus on? So there's a lot of different things you can look at, a lot of different things to dig in. So in your opinion, what are the key metrics and data points that always need to be included and always need to be considered?
Aaron, I'm really interested to hear what you have to say on this because you're with a very data-focused organization, and so I'm interested to know how you guys tackle that.
Yeah, so in our organization, the metrics that we care about is, can we actually change this? Can we do anything to actually change our RFP win? We're structured around that. It's in all of our documentation for every deal that Capture touches. Like, here's where we stand based on our competitor. So I guess competitive landscape. And then also, can we do anything to change that? That's a metric we care about, more so probably than win-losses, although win-losses is still something we track. But like, what are we actually doing? What works for what customers? And how do we keep repeating that? So if one customer cares about the charts and graphs and we send them charts and graphs and we win, great. Let's continue sending that customer charts and graphs to win more bids. If another customer loves getting taken out to lunch because they don't know anything and they want to have friends, great, take them out to lunch. But we don't know that until we've collected the data. And so we try to collect what actually works for each customer and what doesn't work. And that's been really critical for us to actually refine, as Steve said, be intentional about what we're doing.
That's interesting that the answer is customer focused, and it should be. I guess I had read this question more along like how we track it internally and what kind of organizational metrics we look at. And to that end, obviously win-loss is one, and capture rate for dollars is another. I like to look at no bid rate, and more specifically, the delta between opportunity identification in addition to the pipeline and when we kill it. So we have not historically had a field where we track entering into the pipeline. So I've been using the delta between RFP release and no bid date. And the longer I can make that, the better off I think that our organization is from a total aspect. Because if we're killing things after the RFP comes out, we've spent time and money and resources on things that we don't need to be chasing. But if we are able to kill it a month, 2 months, 6 months before it comes out, we can take that month, 2 months, 6 months, and put it towards other efforts that are maybe more strategic, more aligned to where we are. And so that's a number that I like to look at every year.
Yeah, that's an interesting, metric, Steve. I think it's already, I think definitely the work has already started for 2025, I believe, because of the pipeline is already building up. Same happening at our end, but I would probably fit in if I go for the poll, I would probably fit in the B, S, but not consistently, because, what's happening is we do have a CRM which has a lot of data analytics and all. But what we're ending up is only with those dashboards. But what practically, whether the capture managers are following these practices, I would say no. So I would say really we wanted our capture management practice to be more kind of mature on top of what data analytics we are trying to capture in our CRM and the dashboard we have. We do our win-loss analysis, the lead to convert analysis, deal velocity analysis, how fast we have submitted response to an RFP or a lead, how fast we have closed the deal, things like that. But all in all, again, it is not industry based, it's not a customer based, it's a case to case basis. So, so definitely we would want to improve on that front, and like from a niche to stable to mature now.
Yeah, and I guess what we are also tracking really quickly is whether or not our tools are working. Internally, we build a lot of micro apps and chatbots and all sorts of things that we test on ourselves and say, like, is this tool repeatable? Is this tool something we can flex with? Is this tool actually useful? And sometimes it's not. Sometimes you have to kill your babies there, but it's a lot of the times having that reflection on the tools that we're building and reflection on what is and isn't working internally is also helpful for our overall capture strategy.
Excellent. So looking at our customers, I would say yes, but consistently is the overwhelming answer. So, but yes, but not consistently, excuse me. So again, just like you said, Erin, likely customer by customer, depending on what's working, it is something that's fluid. So we have a few minutes left here. I want to jump in quickly. We do have a few questions in the chat. I want to make sure that we get to those. And our first question is, where do you think the line is between capture and proposal management? It's a fine line. Where would you say that is, or how could you describe that to our folks?
I mean, I have a pretty firm belief on this that's not always shared by the organization that I've worked for in the past. There is, I don't know if there's a whiteboard tool, but there is a graphic that I saw at my very first organization, and it was a large systems integrator. Capture is lead all the way up until RFP release, and this is capture, this is proposals, and then at RFP release, the lines switch, and proposals takes over, and capture is in a support role. That's how I view it, as it should be. And when I'm running capture on an opportunity, as soon as that RFP comes out, I have a conversation with a proposal manager and I say, look, tell me if I'm stepping on your toes. I'm going to try and be here to support you and not run this show. This is your show. This is the proposal management show at this point. Tell me where I can plug in to be your support and feed you information and make this proposal great, because you're the subject matter expert on this particular part of the cycle.
Yeah,
I would agree with that.
Yeah, sorry.
No,
a small
go ahead.
anecdote on what Steve was telling, completely agree. And probably to simply say capture manager is the CEO and proposal manager or the response strategist is the COO of that opportunity. So we used to call that way. Just reminded.
I just wanted to clarify, like in geos and in organizations that don't have capture as a function, a lot of geos don't have that as like its own function, and so bid manager kind of fills some of that gap. And so like if you're trying to figure out where capture manager and bid manager kind of overlap, I would say they overlap for a lot of the work, and then hand it to the proposal manager, similar to what we were saying. But like for most geos, those are separate functions. I just wanted to clarify that.
Great.
Yeah, and for the visually minded in the group, this is there we go. Kind of. Anyway, that's not going to work. I apologize, but my handwritten graphic is blurred out by my background blur. I apologize for that.
Excellent. So I have a question here, and this might be our last question, and any other questions, just let everybody know that we're in the chat. We will address after the session and make sure that we get answers for you. We have here, I work for an organization that does not use a capture framework or data to make bid, no bid decisions. So I'm a proposal manager and I'm constantly struggling to get information to properly tailor a proposal. Do you have any recommendation on how to get buy-in from our sales teams on following my APMP Shipley lead?
So yes, and I'm happy to send that person, if you can, Allison, if you can send me who that was, I'm happy to send them a copy of the presentation that I did, because it not only talks about the framework, but it also talks about how to get buy-in from a proposal manager seat, because a lot of organizations don't necessarily look at the proposal manager as the SME that they are. And so I feel pretty strongly about finding a champion and how to get that taken care of. So always happy to chat on that.
Excellent. And we'll just sneak in one more. And the last question was, how do you see, or the last question we'll get to is, how do you see the new administration shakeup impacting how we conduct capture? Do you think there'll be any impact?
So from a federal perspective, I don't know, Kartik and Erin, how that will impact your markets. there's always going to be a ripple effect in global markets from this. But for us, I think it's going to differ on what agencies we focus on. The actual how we do capture talking to customers, I don't foresee changing all that much. It just matters on which customers there are and how we talk about that.
In the state, I was just going to say follow the money. And in the state and local market, we're going to follow the money. If state and local market budgets are shifting because of agency shifts in the federal landscape, then we'll follow that. But at the end of the day, I think that's how we do capture. We still follow the money, and we're still going to follow the money.
Yeah, likewise, we do have a 2030 vision document for the procurement practices and where the money is going from the government here, particularly in some of the green procurement initiatives and advancements from the latest technology like AI and tie-ups with even the governments there. So there is a roadmap, and I think the money is going there. Follow the money with the roadmap.
Excellent. That is wonderful. And the last one was we had a request, Steve, if that framework could be sent to everybody afterwards. And so we'll talk to you about that.
Yeah, we'll figure out how to get that done. Okay,
great. So thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you to our panelists. I appreciate your insight. This has been excellent across the board. To all our attendees, we will follow up with copies of the slides, copies of the recording, copies of resources, and any questions that weren't answered, we will make sure that we address. I know we're a minute over, so I apologize to everybody, but thank you again for joining us, and look out for our next session as Optimize 24 continues. Thanks.